Hi, this is Andre. This video is going to be about making sample slicers in the grid and about different techniques you can use to get them to work correctly. This is a project I've been working on for the last while that's a kind of a hybrid of beat division and manual sampling or manual slicing, and it has access to a bunch of different parameters to basically let you do like glitchy beats. Here's an example of it, slicing up an old break beat and kind of tweaking some of the parameters. Alright, so this video is kind of a continuation on a video I made several months ago that was about a different sample slicer that I had made, and I uploaded that one to Bitwiggers. I took it down because it had a bunch of problems. That patch had really high CPU usage, and the envelopes weren't working correctly. I didn't have like a proper relationship to the actual loop length over here, so that if you change the pitch or the speed, it was messing it up. So I've been experimenting with a whole bunch of different ways to get these kind of slicers to work, and experimenting with different ideas. And anyway, I think I've kind of like got a technique that's working now, and I'm gonna make something like this available. I'm kind of working on like a bundle of devices for like glitch and IDM and stuff that I'll plan on putting out at some point, but yeah, see when it all happens. But anyway, on this video, I kind of wanted to just sort of go over some of the techniques to get this stuff to work and sort of show a lot of the problems I was having and the ways I was kind of figuring them out. And the main problem I was having was that, so like you can see the way I'm slicing them, it's actually playing loops. Here, I'm going to open up a default one so we don't have any automation going. And one thing off the bat too, when you first load it, so like I'm doing the slicing with these paraseq modulators. That's the same way I had it on my last sample slicer. These paraseq modulators will hold values if these things are on underneath the numbers, but when you first open a patch with paraseq modulators, they don't have the values in them until they're activated. So what I've done is I just have this button that says set, and then I just turn this slice knob, and it scrolls through all the values. So then now they're all stored. So now you can see, let me pull up the sampler window. And it was kind of important for me not to have to actually go into the grid to use this. So all the parameters are over here. And you can see this beat is sliced. And the slices are different sizes, so it's actually manual slicing using the paraseqs. Let me put on one-shot mode. Yeah, the one-shot mode versus, if that's not on, it's on sustain. All right, so what I was saying before about the hold time, so that's the kind of most important thing that I was sort of struggling with. So, unfortunately, there's no way that I know of to input the sample length, even from a sampler within the grid, into the grid. There's no output information for a sample length. You get that in other modular, like in Reactor. If you have a sampler module, it'll have the sample length out so that you can get everything working right. So I kind of came up with a workaround to make it work, and you have to input in the sample length though. So have that. So I have this note grid that's over here. If you open it, then what happens is this right over here has to be the same length. This number here needs to be the same amount of samples as, the same amount of seconds or milliseconds as the sample. And you can see the sample length down here, but it only gives you one number past the decimal point. If you're pulling it from the browser, it'll show 2. So yeah, it's a little more accurate. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the more accurate, the better. So I know that this sample is actually 10.88 seconds. So I have just over here these knobs. And so if you turn these, they just need to match the sample. And then I have this range thing. So if you have very long samples, it can actually go up to very high. But the hold only goes up to 10 seconds. So this will only work if you're having a high amount of divisions. So this is more sort of intended for longer samples that, if you're making have like a bunch of sounds evenly spread out over one long sample, and you want to slice that way. That's like a kind of, I did that because that's like a technique I would use for exporting sounds into an octatrack. So anyway, so if I bring this back to here, and then I have this fine tune. So if I get it to 10.88, all these should work right. Oops. Oh, I forgot. When I have it in set mode, it bypasses the key track. So if I turn this off, then the slice knob controls the slices. And I had that so that I can have key tracking for pitch if I want. But anyway, so now it's all playing correctly. And the thing that I have now that works that didn't work in the old one is that I can change the pitch, change the speed. And it plays fine. It doesn't create problems. And it's tricky because, so you can see that, there is no actual slice mode in the Bitwig sampler. So, you can slice to a multi-sample, but there isn't actually a slice mode that looks like this. I'm trying to have this basically look like other samplers that would have a slice mode. But the only way you can kind of see this and get this control is with the loop. So the whole goal is that I wanted it to the whole time to go exactly up until the edge and cut off right before it so that you don't get a click. And that needs to work. And getting that to work for even divisions is not too bad, but then once you start changing the sample lengths with these manual parameters and the pitch and all that, that's where the difficulties come in. So I'm going to get into how I kind of did all that. First, I'm going to show you just the features I have on this so you can kind of understand what's going on in this patch. So the first thing I have here, again, is pitch. And then over here, like I was saying, I have the option. So I have key track. Does the keyboard affect the slice or the pitch? So if keyboard affects pitch, then you can play in notes and use a knob to switch the slices. Then over here, I have one-shot mode or sustain mode. So sustain mode, you have to hold it down. One-shot mode, it just plays the whole thing out. Then I have this scrub feature that allows you to just scrub through scrub through. It'll end at the next slice. And these set and hold. So hold is used for actually inputting the manual slices. It just holds like a gate so that you can let it re-trigger so that you don't have to hold down a key on the keyboard. You can use both hands when doing this, because if you hold shift on these, you get a finer resolution. Then over here, I have time stretching. So I have different levels of time stretching. And then over here, I have the option to link or unlink the grain size from the time stretch. What you just heard was it linked, but if I unlink it, it'll give. You can see. So and yeah, if that was in one shot, it would have played all the way out. So then over here, I have two different types of retrigs. So these first ones, so these are both of these types of retrigs have the same parameters, and they're both influenced by the legacy electron box, so the machine drum and mono machine, and also the Octatrack. They all have this style of retrig. So well, to have it sound like that, if you have B on, it'll basically play the sample at the end. And then if B is off, it'll just be the short thing. But then I also have another way that, so this one, the reason I have two is that they work differently. This one is MIDI retrigs. This one is loop length retrigs. So here, first I'm going to turn these off. So if loop length retrigs are on, it's just going to play, it's basically going to play this, and you can bring that down. And again, you have the same thing here. If you hold B, it's going to do it until it hits that. And you can also bend that like this. And then, like I was saying earlier, I have sustain mode and one-shot mode. So if it's in one-shot mode, then it works like the electron boxes, that this amount is this amount over here is going to be how many times it repeats. Oops. Okay, so wait, why am I hearing something else? Oh, because I have bend on. Okay, that's why that doesn't sound right. All right. So if this is up all the way and I hit it, it's not going to do anything because it's the full length of the sample. If I bring it down, oh, it's in one shot. So I'm going to take it off one shot. So and again, if I turn off B, so I kind of like the sound of this one more than the MIDI one. I've experimented with both, but they can kind of both do different things depending on what other parameters you have going on. And then I have this option over here to mute it if the rate is on either side. So if these are on, it's not going to be on this side or on this side. So that way I don't have to actually hit these buttons. I can just kind of sweep through it whenever I want. So if I'm playing buttons, I can just scroll through here. Why am I not hearing anything? So if I put that in one shot, but then yeah, I can just play these and then just scroll through. All right. And then over here I have, so like I showed you, I have the bend for retrigs over here. And then I also have, let me turn off these retrigs now. I also have a bend for pitch, bend time. Then I have access to just the different sampler parameters right here. So your speed, the mode, grain size, formant. Then over here, these are not part of the sampler, but sample rate reduction, bit reduction. I have a filter, and this filter, one of the things I did was it's off. So if it's in any of the low pass modes, it's off when it's over here. If it's any of the high pass modes, it's off when it's over here. And if it's in the band pass modes, it's off on either side. So you just have a mode knob over there. And yeah. So anyway, this is where all the slicing comes in. So just like on the other device that I had, you can move these. Oh, why didn't that one? Oh, that one didn't play through because it's getting cut off. So I have some of these modes work differently than others, because I have over here this thing that says bidirectional. So right now it's not in. It's in the unipolar mode. In unipolar mode, so they have different kind of pluses and minuses, or like advantages to the different modes. So unipolar mode is it basically evenly distributes it. So each slice would be at its exact point of that division for however big you're dividing the sample. Maybe that doesn't make much sense here. If I put all these in the center over here, right now it's not going to actually, because this beat I have is not quantized, so this isn't going to sound right. But you can basically see that these will be evenly distributed for whatever I have set for this division. And if I have, and then I have over here, this is the range of these. So you can reduce the range to get more fine tuning. And then I also have this thing, Exponential, that will basically make it really snap tight to the zero. Because one of the problems with these paraseek modulators is that for some reason, even when they're set to zero, they still put out slight little values. And I haven't figured out a way to deal with that. So if I have something in here that's not like an offbeat, something that is perfectly quantized, and I want this divisions to work perfectly, I can just turn this exponential thing up, and it'll like snap them right on to the point where they need to go. And then if you move these, they'll have a little bit of a. How to have the range small? They'll have a little bit of a they'll kind of slow down in that center point. And you can see there's a relationship between, so if I move the slice that's in front of this one, it extends the length, because I have the lengths linked. So the beginning of one is where the end of one is where the beginning of the next one is. And then what happens if they go to zero, I have it flip like this. You see? So now that crossed to zero, and then it just flips to the exact size. So anyway, that's some of the different ways that this unipolar mode works. So there's kind of these different modes that I have depending on what kind of sample I'm slicing. And then I have over here, the other mode is bipolar mode, and this doesn't have a relationship to any point in the divisions. So this way you can just basically start at the bottom, and it kind of gives you a bigger range. It gives you a bigger range, but you can't reduce the this range. So it's hard to get them sometimes totally accurate because you don't have a very, very fine resolution on these sliders. So you can see now if I bring this down, it'll come over here. And then for setting these up quickly, I'm going to turn this down so it's not too annoying. So I can put the retrig rate up all the way and hit hold, and it'll just keep repeating each one. And then if I take it off here, I can just use the knob to go through it, so I don't have to find which key it's at. And I kind of find that that's the quickest way for me to slice something. So now I can just go to the next one. Go to the next one. Okay, so I'll take that off hold, put this back, and let me bring the volume back up. I'll turn it down a little bit. All right, so you can see these are working. So anyway, so that's the kind of rundown of what's going on here. So now I want to get into kind of explaining how some of this stuff works. And yeah, like I mentioned before, I am going to make some sort of device like this available in this pack of like devices that I'm working on. The other devices I'm working on are mostly like sequencers and a lot of devices that kind of mimic parameter locks on electron devices. So yeah, I've got a handful of devices that I want to try to bundle together and put them out in some way. So I want to kind of show you how I got the hold to match, because that was sort of the trickiest thing for me. And maybe there's another way to do this. Like I haven't figured out any way to actually extract the hold information out of the sampler. If somebody knows it, that would be very cool. But this was an early version of this kind of idea. Let me turn this down. So this was this is a much more simple setup than I have in the patch I was just playing. But this was kind of my first experimentation in trying to get this kind of way working. So basically, if I go into here, let me bring this over here. So what I did to kind of get it to work was I started just taking like samples of a certain length and creating a sort of system to where they map to the hold length over here. So the first thing I did was I basically just have this plus that for the fine tune goes into this. And these are different values again than I have on the current project I'm doing, but I'm opening this up because it's a lot simpler, so it'll be easier for people to understand what's going on. So this one will go between 32 seconds and what is this, 0.25 of a second. So yeah, so basically in this one, if you do I have control over here? No, I don't. So if you scroll through here, you'll see it'll change this value over here. And so what I started with was just doing like even numbers to kind of figure out what are the values that would be needed to get it to work. So if I was to put this, for example, at 8, then I can't remember what are the smallest number of slices I can have on this version. Where does it get triggered from? I'm trying to find which octave. Okay, yeah, so this one goes down to 4. So over here then, since I'm telling it, this sample isn't actually 8 seconds, so it's going to sound wrong. I'm just going to mute it. But anyway, so now that this is at 8, and I'm setting my subdivision to 4, then the hold time should be 2. And if I hold here, if you see down there in the corner, it says 2 seconds. And then if I now change my subdivision to what is this? To 8 samples, it should be 1 second now. So if I click on the hold time, you can see it's 998 milliseconds. It's just shy of a second. You can actually get them a little bit more accurate, and I do have it more accurate on that other one, but this was like, again, a kind of a more simplified setup. And then yeah, so as the divisions go, so now this is how many? I think 32. So the hold time is showing us 250 milliseconds. Oh, these are okay. These are slightly off somewhere because of the manual is pushing them off. But anyway, for the most part, they're basically correct. And so basically, the way that it's working is now the same knob that's scrolling through here to give us however many seconds we have. That same knob scrolls through these merge modules. And each of these merge modules is going into this merge module that's being controlled by the division amount. So, depending on how many divisions, it'll pick it. So anyway, you can see this one has this sort of system that got it to work, but I didn't know that this was going to work when I first started making this thing. The first thing that I started doing to get it to work was, so this thing outputs to a modulator that gets sent to the hold. It's going through some other stuff here, but basically what I did at first, just to kind of figure out what the values were going to be, is I would just put a number into each one of these and then move that number until the hold time was correct for the different divisions. And once I did that, I noticed a pattern. So once I noticed the pattern, I was able to kind of figure it out. Once I saw what the values were, I realized that this whole thing would work. So basically, I have 75.75 divided by 10, and that gets added to here. Anyway, it looks like it's 0.90. I don't know. The thing is, the numbers don't really matter because it's going to be different depending on how you have it set up, depending on what's your largest amount of seconds and how fine you're going. Because this one doesn't go that fine. The other one I have is like 3. There's 3 of them, so it goes to bigger values and smaller values than this. And then this right here could just be a 1, but I have it running into this whole other array that was meant for adding for larger slices. So basically, like, once you have a setup like this going, that's kind of got a relationship between the loop length and the hold time, then it's just a matter of making adjustments for anything that's going to affect the hold time. So basically, in my case with this project, anytime a slice is made bigger or smaller with manual mode, or if the pitch goes up or down, or if the speed goes up or down, it has to be accommodated for. And so what I kind of did was I sort of set up systems to where it would add 1/8 or subtract 1/8 from these values at any point where it doubles or halves the loop length. Because these, there's 8 inputs on these merge modules, so any place where it increases 1/8, because over here it's doubling, it's going 32/16. Any place where it doubles or halves is going to be 1/8 away from each other. So once you kind of have it set up like that, you can basically take everything else that's going to affect the loop length and get it to not that's going to affect but that's going to affect the hold time and get it to match. So I'm going to open up now this was another kind of iteration of it later on. It's still not the same project as I was working on, but it goes a little further. So this one is the one that where I have this range option, so I can go to much bigger amount of seconds. And the whole purpose of that is because the hold value, like I said, the hold value, the maximum is 10 seconds. But I have this range option that will allow me to have samples up to very, very long because the range works with the division knob. So if I'm at a higher range, then I can use different divisions. Like for example, I can have, every 30-second division if it's divided up into 32, or every 16th if it's divided up into 16, can be up to 10 seconds. So you can actually get much longer samples. So that's kind of why I have that range thing going. And then I've been experimenting with a few different ways to do this. I'm not actually sure if the way I did it on here is the best way to do it, but basically the way I have the patch that I was playing earlier and this kind of early version of it is that I just have this setup that halves or doubles the loop length. And so pretty much whatever you'll add into it will morph between them. So anywhere where it's is it where it's increasing it? I don't remember which side I have, but basically anywhere where it's decreasing it gets added to this side, and anywhere where it's increasing it gets added to this side. And so they'll just again move it up 1/8 or down 1/8 if it's, well, they'll both actually move it down 1/8, because so basically if it's getting larger, if it's, if the hold time is going from 4 to 8 seconds, it'll go down 1/8 over here. If it's going from 4 to 2 seconds, it'll go 1/8 to here. And so that's kind of the overall idea. And I know this might sound confusing, and I mean this is kind of not really meant for like people who are just learning Bitwig or the grid, but I'm kind of intending this just for people like me who might are trying to do stuff like this and struggling with it, because I was having just a very difficult time getting all this stuff working, and I wasn't even sure if it was possible. And on top of that, just trying to get it working with some sort of a reasonable CPU usage, because a lot of the different ways I was kind of getting to work were just too convoluted. So trying to get it to work with some sort of a sensible CPU usage is the goal. And so if I go back into this patch over here, I'll show you some of the other things that are going on. So kind of like the whole signal path is, first I have this key to just basically a conversion that converts the keyboard range from 0 to 1, depending, and that is dependent on how many divisions you're at. And then so then just different options over there, and then this is the setup that controls the paraseeks. I've done tutorials before. I think the first tutorial I ever did on parameter locks in the grid, I made this exact setup, which is how these are all chained up together. But yeah, I mean, basically the idea, well, you can do it a few different ways, but on this one I just have the knob movement, or it's basically 0 to 1 that's coming either from the knob or from the keyboard, is getting multiplied by 8, and then I have these biases down here. And these are just fed into the phase on each one of these paraseek 8 modulators that are all set to hold. And then the sample division goes over here, and it basically divides it by one of these numbers, because if I have my, I'll show you why. So if I have my divisions, here, let me just do it with the knob so I can do it quickly. So if I have, I'm on bipolar mode. All right, all right, now there's only one sample, so it's not even going to move through it. Or it did move through it. Wait a minute, why is that? Oh, it's, you know why? Because I haven't set the knob correctly. I have a keyboard working right for it, but not the knob. So anyway, I'll show you then. But I'll use the keyboard. So if I go to divisions here, all right. So I'm just scrolling through these on my keyboard. You can see at 64, it's hitting all of them. If it goes to 32, it's only going to be this top row over here, and you can see this moved, so it's just dividing it. And then if I bring the divisions down to 16, you can see now it's just going to be these two. 8 will just be this one, and then anything inside of there is just going to be in here. So yeah, so that's what the parasync modulators are doing. And like I said, I have another tutorial that goes through and builds one of these, but it's not too bad. This part I know looks a lot more complicated, but this is basically where all the manual slicing happens. So each one of these paraseeks is assigned to one of these, which is the sample start. And then these are all fed into these merge modules, and the same controls going through these so that those values will come out at the end, so they can be added to the loop length. But for me, it was important to have the loop length have a relationship to the loop start points. So basically, I just pretty much have this whole system where this loop length, it goes to here, but there's an equation that goes to the over here, which is the actual length. All right, so this is the start. This merge is where the start values go into. This merge is where the length values go into. So basically, I have 0 minus this value plus the start over here. I think it's 0. Yeah, it's 0. Becomes the loop length. And, there's different ways to do this, because I've done a few different versions of these things. So again, I'm kind of just wanted to just pretty much explain like the sort of principle of how it works. And you can see too, my CPU is really high when this is open, but when it's closed, it's not that high. And one of the things I've noticed with these big grid patches, though, is if you once you open it, it seems like it's higher than if you never opened it. So, the goal with this patch is to never open it. So you don't have to, because everything's accessible in the front. So that's why, I have that. That's why I nested the place where you put the sample length inside of this separate note grid, is because I don't want anybody to have to open this polygrid. So then I have all these different kind of things that fix the values. And then, like I was saying before, I have all these conversions for the different things that are going to affect the loop length and the hold time. So that's all this stuff over here that's getting fed into here. That's the same array I was showing on the other one. And then I have all these things for the different, basically, additions for the manual slicing. And some of this stuff still needs tweaking. It's not perfect. I've got time stretch and then retrigs over here. But anyway, yeah, the whole kind of point of this video was just sort of to talk about how to deal with hold time, because I think that that's one of the biggest problems with making samplers, is if you want to do stuff that's like gets very precise like this, is is finding that relationship between loop length and hold time. And again, I mean, I know loop isn't really meant to do this. Loop is supposed to loop, but I'm kind of like, doing something that's not supposed to be done with loop in order to get this kind of method of slicing working. And so hopefully some of this stuff makes sense. Yeah, okay. Thanks for watching. I'll have probably some more stuff pretty soon. And like I was saying before, I have a bunch of new patches I've been working on, so I'm kind of planning on putting some sort of a bundle of stuff together, and I would like to have a manual slicer of this kind of type. I don't know if it's going to be the same as this, but something similar. I'm I'll probably try to simplify it a bit to have better CPU usage and to make it a little bit more um, understandable for people. Um, yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. Okay. Bye.